Welcome back to the Deep Dive, and a special welcome to Congress in Context. Today, our mission is to peel back the curtain a bit on what might seem like a really quiet day in the U.S. Congress. We're looking at Tuesday, August 5, 2025. Now, you might assume a day with no big votes, no fiery debates. Well, maybe not much happens, but we're diving into the Congressional Record. That's our source material today, and it actually gives this unique window into the daily grind, the new ideas brewing, and even some really human stories. So what really happens on a day like that? You might be surprised. Okay, let's unpack this.
Okay, so setting the scene for August 5th. The first thing that jumps out from the record is just how brief the actual floor sessions were. Take the House of Representatives. They convened at 10 a.m. Speaker pro tempore, Mr. Herodopoulos, was presiding. He was appointed by Speaker Mike Johnson. And then adjourned at 10:02 a.m. Just 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
Yeah.
This sounds incredibly short for, Congress. Did the Senate do something similar?
Pretty much exactly the same pattern. The Senate met at 1:01 p.m. Acting President pro tempore Mike Rounds was in the chair, appointed by Mr. Grassley, and they adjourned 32 seconds later at 1:0003 p.m.
Wow. Okay, so under a minute for the Senate. But you're saying they still did something, like the basics.
Absolutely. Even in those few moments, they ticked the boxes, prayers were offered, they approved the previous day's journal, the Pledge of Allegiance happened, and importantly, the Daily Digest section confirms it. No roll call votes, no recorded votes, no quorum calls needed, and actually no committee meetings scheduled for either chamber that day.
So it makes you wonder, why even bother meeting for, 2 minutes or 30 seconds?
Right. And what's fascinating here is that these super brief sessions, they're called pro forma sessions, are actually a regular and pretty essential part of how Congress works. They often happen during recesses or these quieter periods. The main reason, it's to satisfy the constitutional requirement that neither chamber can adjourn for more than 3 days without the other's consent, and crucially, it keeps the House technically in session.
Ah, okay. So it's not about debating bills necessarily, but about fulfilling a constitutional duty.
Exactly. Being technically in session prevents the president from making certain appointments without Senate confirmation, so-called recess appointments. It also impacts deadlines for bills. It's like the quiet hum of the engine, maintaining that constitutional status, ensuring they're ready to act if needed, even when most members are actually back in their districts working.
The quiet hum, I like that. And speaking of work that isn't loud floor debates, a big chunk of the record for August 5th deals with something called executive communications. What exactly are those, and why should we pay attention to them?
Good question. Executive communications are basically the official pipeline for reports, rules, notifications coming from federal agencies and the White House to Congress. On this specific day, August 5th, 20 of these communications were received, and each one gets formally sent or referred to the relevant congressional committee for oversight.
Oversight. So this is how Congress keeps tabs on what the rest of the government is doing.
Precisely. It's a primary tool for Congress to monitor how agencies are implementing laws, spending money, making rules. It's this constant behind-the-scenes check on the administrative state.
And looking at the list for August 5th, something really jumps out about where these communications were going.
It really does. The striking thing is the volume heading to one particular committee. Get this. 18 out of the 20 communications were referred to the Committee on Natural Resources.
18 out of 20, that's overwhelming. What does that tell us?
It tells us that even on a day with no floor action, the focus on environmental and resource regulation is just relentless. It's constantly moving. For example, we saw EC 1637. That was from the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency. It was labeled a major final rule dealing with deadline extensions for climate review standards in the oil and natural gas sector.
Okay, so that's directly impacting a major industry. Ongoing regulation.
Definitely. And then you had things like EC 1638, which was a notification from the president himself. It was about continuing a national emergency related to export control regulations. This particular emergency was first declared way back in August 2001.
Wow, still going. So these things have really long tails.
They certainly can. This one went to the Committee on Foreign Affairs, showing that link between executive actions and long-term foreign policy that Congress needs to track. And then, drilling down further, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, and the National Marine Fishery Service, NMFS, said a whole slew of things, all to natural resources.
Right, I saw those really specific stuff like rules about protecting marine mammals during port construction in Alaska. EC 1639.
Exactly. Or ET 1641, a temporary rule closing the recreational harvest for Gulf gag grouper in 2025.
And EC 1652, designating critical habitat for threatened corals in the Indo-Pacific, plus rules for the Pacific Coast groundfish fishery.
It shows the incredible detail. Right? This is an abstract policy. It's about managing specific activities, specific species, specific places. It directly shapes what happens on the water and coasts.
And there was even some good news in there, relatively speaking.
Yeah, a little bit. EC 1656 from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service was a final rule removing the Roanoke log perch from the endangered species list. So a nod towards successful recovery efforts.
That's good to see.
So if you kind of zoom out, what all these communications show is this constant undercurrent of regulatory activity. Congress plays this vital oversight role, reading these reports, knowing these rules are being made, even when they aren't holding hearings or voting on new laws that day.
It really drives home the government doesn't just stop when the cameras are off. These aren't just bureaucratic filings. They matter.
They absolutely matter to industries, ecosystems, communities, and sometimes even our daily lives.
Okay, so from overseeing existing rules, let's pivot to where new ideas start. That's the public bills and resolutions introduced section, right? This is members putting proposals out there.
Exactly. This is where you see the seeds of potential future laws being planted. It gives us a real glimpse into what issues are on members' minds, what problems they're trying to solve for their constituents. On August 5th, there were 46 new public bills and 9 new resolutions introduced just in the House.
46 bills. That's quite a few for a quiet day. What kind of themes did you see emerging?
Well, there was a definite cluster around homelessness and housing. For instance, H.R. 4872, introduced by Mrs. Waters, aims to provide a path to end homelessness in the United States, a very ambitious goal.
Ambitious, yes.
And related. Related, yes. H.R. 4874 from Mr. Aguilar looked to authorize funding of enriched resident services in federally assisted affordable housing. So, trying to add support within existing structures.
Okay, so tackling housing from different angles. What about the environment, given all those executive communications?
Unsurprisingly, yes. A lot of action there, too. Under environmental stewardship and natural resources, you had H.R. 4875 from Mr. Barr. That one's to establish a framework for the beneficial use of coal combustion residuals. So dealing with industrial byproducts.
Managing waste, essentially.
Right. And on the conservation side, H.R. 4877 from Mr. Carbajal proposed to designate certain federal land in the state of California as wilderness. Plus, H.R. 4903 from Mrs. Stevens focused on health, aiming to carry out, expand, and coordinate programs relating to plastic exposure health research.
Interesting. So management, conservation, and health impacts all being addressed. What else?
Veterans Affairs saw some notable bills. H.R. 4876, introduced by Mrs. Brownlee, is quite specific. To direct the Secretary of Veterans Affairs to provide abortion care, counseling, and related services and medication to certain individuals.
Okay, that's clearly tied into ongoing national debates.
Absolutely. And then H.R. 4886 from Mrs. Heichen aimed to provide for consideration of certain factors under the Veterans Community Care Program, likely looking at how veterans access care outside the VA system.
Got it. How about the machinery of government itself? Any bills about that?
Yes, under Government Operations and Ethics. H.R. 4873 from Mr. Petronis is interesting. It seeks to codify Executive Order 14319, which the title describes as relating to preventing woke AI in the federal government. So, bringing a specific executive action into law, dealing with technology and government.
That sounds like it could generate some debate down the line.
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
Then there was H.R. 4884 from Mr. Fine, proposing to require the Secretary of Commerce to conduct a census of population counting only citizens of the United States. That touches on really fundamental questions about the census.
Definitely a significant proposal.
And another big one in this category, H.R. 4890 from Mr. Krishnamurthy. This aims to prevent members of Congress and their spouses and dependent children from trading stocks and owning stocks, addressing ethics and potential conflicts of interest head-on.
That's been a recurring theme. Okay, what about elections? Always a hot topic.
Always. Under election integrity and access, we saw H.R. 4881 from Ms. Crockett. Her bill would direct the Election Assistance Commission to make grants to states for procuring and maintaining electronic poll books. They could also track and display wait times, trying to improve the voting experience.
Practical approach.
And notably, Mrs. Williams of Georgia introduced a whole suite of election-related bills on this one day.
Oh.
H.R. 4908 for paid leave to vote, H.R. 4909 linking voter registration to housing applications, H.R. 4911 about preventing long lines, H.R. 49014 removing barriers for unhoused voters. Really a broad push on access.
Wow, quite a focus from one member. Anything on public safety or health more broadly?
Yes. Mr. Desaulniers introduced two related bills, H.R. 4882 and H.R. 4883, both focused on gun safety. One would establish a gun safety board, the other a database for gun violence prevention laws.
Addressing gun violence through information and structure.
Seems to be the goal. Also, H.R. 4897 from Mrs. Norton, called the Blue Envelope Act of 2025. This would make state programs using blue envelopes, which help drivers with communication challenges like autism, interact safely with police eligible for federal safety funding.
That's interesting, a very specific focus on improving interactions.
And finally, there were several commemorative and historical resolutions. H.R. 4885 from Mr. Green of Texas proposed a historic congressional gold medal, posthumously and collectively, to Africans and their descendants enslaved within our country from August 20, 1619 to December 6, 1865.
A very powerful and symbolic gesture.
Indeed. And H.R. 4901 from Ms. Stefanik sought a gold medal for the women who served in the U.S. Army and Navy Nurse Corps during World War II.
Honoring unsung heroes.
Right. And Mr. Green also introduced House resolutions recognizing historical figures like Reverend Nat Turner, Prince Hall, and former Texas State Representative Al Edwards, who was instrumental in making Juneteenth a holiday.
So, just looking at that list, it really drives home the sheer range of things Congress deals with, doesn't it? From, like, coal ash rules to fundamental rights issues to honoring history.
It absolutely does. It shows the incredibly varied interests and priorities of over 400 individual members, reflecting the concerns of their districts and the nation. These introductions are the first step, the planting of seeds for future debate and potential law.
And I notice each bill has this constitutional authority statement. What's that about?
Yes. Basically, every member introducing a bill has to include a statement explaining which part of the U.S. Constitution gives Congress the power to make a law on that specific subject. It's a procedural requirement grounding the proposal in constitutional authority.
Got it. Okay, so from these big, sometimes abstract ideas for laws, let's shift to something much more personal, the extensions of remarks section. What happens there?
This section is really unique. It's not about making laws. It's where members can insert speeches, tributes, articles, basically anything they want into the official record, often to honor constituents, celebrate local achievements, or memorialize people. It really humanizes the whole process.
It sounds like where the local focus really shines through. Any examples that stood out on August 5th?
Oh, definitely. Some really touching stories. For instance, Miss Scholten from Michigan gave a tribute for Elgin Vine's 90th birthday. He's a jazz bassist, apparently charted his own course through the Jim Crow South, toured with huge names like Frank Sinatra, even played on The Tonight Show.
Wow, what a life. That's incredible.
Isn't it? A story of resilience, music, history, all captured right there in the Congressional Record.
Amazing. Who else?
Well, Mr. Simpson from Idaho honored Julie Tenson upon her retirement. She wasn't a famous musician, but she worked for decades as a congressional staffer, budget director, education outreach coordinator. Helped thousands of Idahoans. It's a tribute to that vital, often unseen public service work.
The people who make the place actually run. That's important to recognize.
Absolutely. And Ms. Dester from Oregon honored the life of Diane Lund-Muzikant, described as a fearless journalist who founded the Lund Report, a nonprofit focused on healthcare reporting in Oregon, highlighting commitment to transparency and accountability.
A local champion for an important cause.
Exactly. Then there was Mary Bryan, honored by Mrs. Castor of Florida. Get this, 63 years of public service to the city of Tampa. Longest-serving employee, served under 11 mayors. Imagine the institutional knowledge.
63 years. That's dedication.
Truly. And Mr. Pallone from New Jersey recognized the 75th anniversary of the Deal First Aid Squad, an all-volunteer EMS organization celebrating community service.
Community heroes.
And on a somber note, Mrs. Davids of Kansas honored Deputy Elijah Ming, a sheriff's deputy in Wyandotte County, who died in the line of duty, recognizing sacrifice.
That really is. Here's where it gets really interesting, I think, because these stories, these individual recognitions, they put faces and names to the work. It shows Congress isn't just this abstract entity, right?
Precisely. It shows the deep connections members maintain with their communities, the people they represent, the local events, the personal triumphs and tragedies. It underscores why they introduce certain bills or focus on specific issues. It's often fueled by these very real human connections back home.
So let's bring it all together. We've seen the quiet constitutional hum, the detailed regulatory oversight, the planting of new legislative seeds, the personal tributes. What does this all mean for you, the listener, trying to make sense of Congress?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway is that quiet doesn't mean inactive. Even on a day with no votes flashing on C-SPAN, really significant work is happening. That oversight through executive communications, it shapes the rules we live and work under. Those newly introduced bills, they represent the future policy debates, the direction members want to take the country. So these records, like the one from August 5th, they actually reflect the ongoing concerns of your representatives in the federal agencies.
Yeah.
And that work, it impacts your life, sometimes in very direct ways, sometimes more subtly.
Right. It's key to understanding the whole picture, not just the headline moments. So how can you, listening now, actually engage with this? How can you follow up?
Great question. First off, finding and reading the actual bills. If any of those bills we mentioned say H.R. 4872 on homelessness or H.R. 4890 on stock trading caught your ear, you can find them. Just go to congress.gov, it's the official source. You can search by the bill number or by keywords or by the member's name. You can read the full text, see who sponsored it, which committees it went to.
Congress.gov. Okay, that's the key resource. And what about reaching out?
Absolutely do it. Contact your representative, your senators. Let them know what you think about these issues or other issues you care about. Remember those extensions of remarks? They show members are listening to people back home. Your voice genuinely matters.
And you can use congress.gov to track what happens next too, right?
Yes, definitely. Track bills as they move, see committee schedules, find votes. For instance, the record we looked at notes that for Friday, August 8th, 2025, both chambers were scheduled for more pro forma sessions. So likely no major votes or hearings right away based on this source, but you can keep checking.
It's about staying informed beyond just Election Day.
Exactly. Understanding the process, knowing what's being proposed, advocating for your views, that's all powerful civic participation. It's not just about voting. It's about being an engaged citizen day to day.
So maybe the final thought is this. A day in Congress that looks quiet from the outside is actually buzzing with the essential, if sometimes unseen, mechanics of governing. It's full of potential energy for future policy. Understanding this rhythm, this quieter side of Congress, may be the real key to being truly well-informed about how our government actually functions. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into Congress in context. We'll see you next time.